Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Oil and Gas Rundown live here at King Operating, based in Dallas, Texas. We are happy to be joining you again today. Hopefully last week you were able to join us live from our drilling and fracking location in the Mid-Con area up in Ochiltree County. If you missed that, you can definitely go back on our LinkedIn or our YouTube and watch our live on location broadcast. And today with me, I'm going to have two gentlemen that you should already know, but in case you don't, we have Kelly Duncan, our EVP of Operations. Say hey, Kelly.
Hey, Rachel.
And we have Ryan Goeres, our EVP of Engineering. Ryan, say hi.
Oh.
Now, today, Kelly is here with me in Dallas. We know that Ryan is up in the great state of Washington, where he's from. Ryan, just, you know what? Let's start with a little bit of how has your time been there?
Not 103.
What? You don't love 103-degree weather?
I'll take a pass every time on that.
Oh, dang.
I'll take 80.
Well, all right. I guess that's understandable. And if you're watching us live today or on the replay, hey, we'd love to know where you're joining from as well. Put that in the comment section. Let us know where you're joining in from, where you're viewing from. We would love to hear a little bit more about where you're watching us at. So today, all right, Kelly, so I won't harass Ryan too much about where he's at right now. I'm going to come back to him with more questions. But Kelly, I want to talk a little bit about, we were out in Mid-Con and you've spent a lot of time there. Actually, let's start. How much time have you spent up in Ochiltree County lately?
I spent a good part of about 60 days up there this year so far. So getting things kicked off. Ryan's right hand, Luis, spoils the heck out of us, but there's a lot of things he can't cover. So I've been out there getting drilling going, getting frac going, and ready to hand off all these operations to Ryan. So it's a unique time for us. First time I've been with King a little over 5.5 years now, and this is the first time we've got dual operations going at the same time. So it's although y'all were out there last week, I was taking care of some personal business, working from the office. But yep, I'll be headed out there shortly myself as well, just as we got so much going on. So we got 3 operations going on at one time right now. That's a lot for a company of our size.
Yeah, and it was actually very interesting to be able to be at both sites and see the drilling part of the operation and the frac side as well. I'm trying to decide which one I think was more interesting as far as just sheer looks, structure, equipment. I might have to go with the frac.
Really?
Because
I just said drilling just because. Well, you told me earlier today we met, and you told me about the alien-esque looking form. Yeah, there is. Both have a lot going on. Drilling is very historical, right? You know, what are the two things when somebody shows you? Think of the TV show Dallas. You see the green arena, you see the pump jack, you see the drilling rig, right? Frack didn't exist when Dallas, not to the level we do today. When Dallas, the TV show, was on air, frack is got a lot of material on location. It's a lot of iron, a lot of equipment, a lot of cables, a lot of chemicals, a lot of water. So you're right. Although I spent a lot of time on both, so I'm kind of a nerd to it all. To see a frac job for the first time, I guess for me, it would have been 27 years ago, the first time I set one. So I'm a little callous to it now, but to see a frac job for the first time is very daunting. So I think that probably, there's a lot going on and a lot of people. You know, you and I were having, and Jay were having this discussion the other day. You know, it's 14, 15 vendors, 40 to 60 people on location time. We're employing all those people. You know, and a lot of equipment, a lot of rental equipment. So there's a lot of money in and out the door in a very short period of time. So it is definitely very exciting time in the oil field.
No, it is. And I would say that it's almost like the drilling side has this very, I have teenagers and young adults, so they call it lore. It has a lot of lore. It's like very iconic to see the big drill up. And it does have this kind of like magnificent feeling, but yet the frac it's like a sci-fi movie. It's like all the trucks and then the piping that's going in like a giant, I don't know, a giant brain or something very interesting. If you've never seen one, you're probably thinking a giant brain, Rachel. I'm probably not articulating that the best way. But as far as interesting goes, the frac was really interesting, just the setup and how everything works. But very fortunate that we could be there, like you said, with both operations happening at the same time. So Ryan, I want you to weigh in on this. Drilling site more interesting or frac site?
No, you'd ask me something like that. Well, I'm not a driller, so I'm going to go with the frac, but that's pretty biased opinion. I used to be a completions engineer back in the day, so a long time ago, but that's what I'd have to go with the frac.
Go with the
Although
frac.
I do love, I mean, drilling's it's cool. There's so much science that goes into it now. Well, there always has been, I guess, but the science is it's come so far, and these directional wells that we're drilling, there's just some really cool stuff on the drilling side as well.
Yeah, I
You're
agree.
right. On surface, it's definitely pressure and rate and all that. Those are eye-capturing things for sure.
I think, kind of one of the most interesting things to observe is how when you look at both sites, it feels like you're looking at little cities, and all, the structural engineering things, the what do you want to call it? The housing they're in and the offices. And then after it's complete, I mean, I guess it's just like the city moves on. What's left after that, Kelly? Just some little tanks, a pump jack.
So one day you'll have 47 people and 1,800 horsepower and 44 pieces of equipment, and 48 hours later, it can be a ghost town. That is an awkward part of our industry. So when I hand off to Ryan from completions to production, it goes from all this activity, I don't know, probably 87 diesel engines on location, power, noise, and then all of a sudden I hand it off to him and it's a ghost town. So we go from all this to nothing overnight. And that's kind of how we work as an industry. Get in, get out, time is money. And I think I told you this the other day, Rachel, but one of the reasons why fracking is so intensive and all that stuff, I went to a training, I'm sure Ryan's been in the same type of school when we first got out of college, went to some industry training. And one of the things they said is, you'll never spend more money in the 20, 30, 40-year life of a well than you will during the frac job. Not ours now, they're a couple $100,000 a day, but I'll never forget 21, 22-year-old baby engineer Kelly sitting on location, and I spent $1 million in one day. And it was just unfathomable to me that you could create enough action, create enough energy to spend $1 million in one day. So we're about
on the frac. Is that on the frac, you mean?
Yeah, during a frac. Yes, ma'am. Deep, hot, South Texas, big fracs in the early 2000s. Never big and expensive. We squeezed 3 in a day, and they were about $300,000 of kick. We still now, an average day on a zipper pad, you still spend $250,000 to $300,000 a day. So if the cost of a well is, $10 million capital plus another $10 million in life of the well over, operating expense and whatnot. So let's say $15, $20 million. Nothing spends more money than spending, $250,000 a day on a frac job. So that's really why there's so many people in the industry that specialize in that, and why, as Ryan said earlier, the technology for that stuff is ever changing, because one minor improvement can save hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that's a big part of our goals. We're always looking for what works best for offset operators, what works best for us, and how we improve cost spent, and of course ultimately production made from it, because we all know that these tight gas formations, these tight shale or sandstones that we work in, that a lot of things can go right, a lot of things go wrong, but we must get the completion and, most importantly, the frac job right.
Yeah. What is the most expensive part of the frac itself? Is it the water, the fluid, the sand, the what is usually?
So you're right. There's about five legs to that component, and the horsepower itself is the single most expensive part. Just the fact that energy created, get 90 barrels a minute, 10,000 psi. When you get high rates and high pressures, it takes a lot of equipment. You showed some videos last week of all those. We have 18 pumps on location, 18 semi trucks with pumps lined up 9 by 9, and this the physical. Now the commodity is expensive, water's tough to get, and all those challenges. Sand itself, logistics, getting on location is expensive, but really burning that diesel, creating that horsepower, that we call it horsepower, fracture horsepower is the single most expensive thing you do in the life of a well.
Yeah, it's interesting that you guys all mobilize that and do it on site. That's probably like what I said, the moving city. It really is like a little moving city that you guys pop up and create and get everything rolling right there. So yeah, it was remarkable to see that. And I know the water situation is a really interesting one to me as well. And Kelly, you can speak to this, or Ryan, just when I was out there with Steve talking about, how you source water, where you look for it, maybe, well, I don't know if one of you just wants to talk about how important water is, but what you also do to make sure there is a solid, steady stream of water.
Industry as whole, that is one of our big challenges, right? Each state has regulations. Each area of each state, popular states, Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Louisiana. We're blessed with Texas. We love oil and gas. We love fracturing here in Texas. So regulations are pretty well manageable in Texas, but availability, we all know, is a tough thing. So, and we need such a high rate of water, or high volume of water, high rate and volume of water in such a short period of time that storage for that water is great. Yeah, most of my wells here, this is farm country, a lot of surface above ground aerial rotation engineering, irrigation here in the Panhandle, but they use X gallons a day, X times 1,000 here. So Ryan helps me a lot because I let he manages him and our field team manage our water storage, and we build what we call duck ponds or frac ponds, because I might use 300,000 barrels of water in a 10-day period. So to do that, I have to have massive water storage. And if I have delays in water, I have delays in cost. So sourcing water is part of our problem, and then storing water is, you got to go out and see an alternate choice the other day. We used some area we could not build a permanent tank. We used some above ground, I'm going to call them redneck swimming pools. We had some above ground swimming pools on a massive scale. It takes three 80,000 barrel tanks, surface tanks, to store water in. And companies like Hydrea do a great job of helping us store that water. But water storage, water usage, and then flip side, water return that Ryan has to deal with is a huge part of what we deal with in the oil and gas.
Ryan, anything to add on to that about water?
No, I think Kelly covered it all. It really is. It's a logistical challenge that we work on constantly, and it changes from well to well. Some wells are close to frac ponds, some wells are further away and we have to transfer the water. Some wells are close to water wells, so the water is close and available. Some water wells are prolific, others are not, and it takes longer to fill up our frac water storage. So, it's it's a challenge, but it's something that we work hard at, and fortunately, we rarely have issues with it.
Yeah, it was interesting to see the above ground water storage, just the giant swimming pools. Wish I'd been at that location. Could have taken a nice swim when we were there, but just joking, everyone. We're not going to swim in the frac ponds.
No, yeah, we don't want to do that.
Just kidding. That's a joke. But it did, it's interesting. So growing up, living overseas for so long in Kenya, everything is done in water storage, in water tanks, massive, small water tanks, big water tanks, everything. So it reminds me of just always having to figure out where your water source is coming from, and it's always pumped into a giant tank somewhere. Apartments have huge tanks, and it's pumped up to the top of your roof, fills up a giant tank of water, and the down pressure hopefully flows enough to give you good water pressure in your house. But I understand the struggle for water and storage. But Kelly, just go ahead and tell us exactly, where we're at on the stages of, or in the process of the drilling and the fracking at the Mid-Con wells.
Yes, ma'am. We kicked off the Mid-Con project late April, 1st of May. We decided as a team, the fiscal and prudent operation was to get a few drilling wells in the inventory, ducks we call them, but not long-term ducks. So we finished a well early May or late May, finished a well early June, and finished a well early July. And we're on the 4th well now. So we're on well 4 of if Jay has his way, 12 to 24 drilling wells. So rigs going nonstop. Our amazing land team just jumped across the hurdle line on a fifth well. So I'll able to deliver well 5, and in the time frame we'll hopefully get 5, 6 through 12 ready. So again, we're drilling well 4, the lateral right now, going great there. And last week while y'all were out in the field, we kicked off our frac operations. We're bouncing between 2 wells right now, so we're fracking wells 1 and 2 right now. I will hand those wells off in about 10 days or so to Ryan, so he can get those wells tubed up and artificial lift on them and start making oil in the tanks and making revenue for these wells. We'll continue fracking wells 3 and 4 through the end of July and into August, and we'll continue drilling. Operational hope is that we'll batch drill frac these wells, so we'll hopefully get 2 or 3 more under my belt by late September and bring another same frac crew back and frac 3 or 4 of those in and really start getting some revenue here out of Local Tree County.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely what we're looking forward to for our investors and our partners. Excited to get that production online. Ryan, okay, explain to everybody out watching. Kelly finishes up the frac. It's complete. He keeps mentioning you. Now he's handing off to Ryan. So what does this handoff look like? What do you do once Kelly's complete?
Well, Rachel, once the frac is completed, depending on the location, sometimes we have to build the tank battery. If there's enough room on the location, we can sometimes start it or build it prior to the frac, but oftentimes we still have to build that tank battery. So those are our tanks, our separators, heater treaters, our measurement. The first thing that we'll do is get that up and going, and then we'll get a completion rig, a workover rig onto the well, and we'll run our production tubing if it hasn't already been run. Sometimes Kelly takes care of that. Typically, there's also a clean out that needs to occur, and if that hasn't been done yet, and depending on the area, sometimes Kelly takes care of that before he hands it over. Sometimes we take care of that. So we clean the well out, make sure we don't have any sand bridges or anything like that, obstructions in the well. We run our tubing while we're often building our tank battery. After that, we get the well on, we flow it, we clean the water out of it. There's a lot of water left, obviously, after the frac that's going to be produced. And early in the life of the well, it's very common to make 100% water. And you could make 100% water for a few hours, a few days, or in some wells longer. So we'll get that flowing back, and after we get it flowed back, and we have our test equipment out there, there'll be a period of time where we're, like I said, predominantly making the water. Once that's over, then we'll turn the well through our permanent equipment that we've installed on location. And eventually we'll have to install artificial lift. Some wells need it very early on. Other wells can flow weeks or months before they need artificial lift. So that's basically what it looks like. We'll clean up the location, add some gravel to it so that our oil hauling trucks can get, and water hauling early on, get on and off location easily. And then we're moving after that, purely into the kind of the production phase of operations.
Yeah. And the reason why, if I'm correct, the reason why so much water can flow back is because that's what's literally been fracked into all those stages, correct? Kind of into what Kelly calls the tree.
Well, yeah, I mean, so the water is what carries our sand. Without the water, we can't get the sand into the well, and it's also what propagates the fracture. The pressure of that water is what actually creates the fracture in the rock. And when we frack, of course, we're not lifting the earth. We don't create these giant pancake shaped fracks. We actually, the crack grows, it cracks open vertically, right? And then, so the water serves 2 purposes. It initiates the frac, and then it carries the sand into the frac, and it leaves it behind afterward in order to hold the fracture open. So early on, obviously, we've pumped so much water in, and those fractures begin to produce back, depending on the relative permeability and a lot of reservoir characteristics. You have to make back a certain amount of that water before you start to get oil and gas coming in behind it, and then over a very long period of time, that water slowly falls off, and the oil and gas slowly comes up. And so, you reach sort of a stabilized production rate fairly quickly, but that rate includes a lot of water. So it takes us quite a bit longer to, watch that water kind of fall off and the oil and the gas come up before we get a good idea of what kind of well that we have. And every reservoir is different. Some do that very quickly, some do that very slowly. But until that happens, we learn, and we can recognize in the reservoir different behaviors during the flowback that will indicate to us if we likely have a good well or not, based on the way it's flowing back, based on the amount of water it's giving up, based on how quickly oil and gas come, how quickly the water falls off. But again, it depends on the reservoir. Everyone is different. And in a lot of cases, if there aren't a lot of other wells there that you can look at the history on, we kind of learn that as we go. And after many wells, then you can kind of get those early time indicators. But in the absence of those early time indicators and understanding of what you're really looking at, we do have to produce the well for a while before we get a good feel for whether or not it's performing at our expectation or above or below it. So
yeah, so that flowback time is really something you monitor. And if you're drilling several wells, I'm guessing that's what the plan is for Ochiltree County. I mean, there's been a lot of wells drilled out there, so I'm sure you have some of that data.
We do
as well. But I'm sure you're still learn some as you go and watch that flowback.
Yeah, I mean, you're always learning, right? At least you should be. But yes, we're not drilling in the middle of nowhere there, so we have a pretty good idea of what to expect there, without a doubt. So those are the things that we do, and that's what we're leading up to, is that the testing of the well, and in the water disposal, it is an important logistical part too. Of course, we produce the water back over a longer period of time than we pump it in the ground.
Yeah.
But we are still making back a lot of water that needs to be separated out of the oil, and it needs to be hauled to a disposal, and it needs to be disposed of. And that's there's a lot of expense in that. There's a lot of logistics in that, but it's something the industry's gotten very good at. I would say.
I was just going to ask you that, actually.
Yeah, we've got pretty good at it. We've kind of grown along with the technology, so to speak. So if you look at wells before unconventional resource plays, we pumped small fracs and we had very little water to produce back. Then when unconventionals came along, there was a major stepwise change in the amount of the size of the frac, therefore the amount of water that we were pumping. But those fracs look very small today, even though at the time they were very large. So as the different generations of fracking have matured and we've moved through those, and the fracs have gotten bigger, more effective, so that we make more energy, more oil and gas out of the well. We've sort of learned as we've moved along, right? It wasn't one big stepwise change from 2 pump trucks and a few frac tanks out on location, all the way to what Kelly described earlier. It was a longer process than that. So as we've moved through that process, obviously we've gotten pretty good at it.
Yeah, that's well, I was wondering, I was like, I was kind of curious about environmental standards back in the day with disposing of frac water was as maybe regulated. I mean, is it pretty regulated? Is it pretty?
Yeah, the Railroad Commission has a lot of regulations around water disposal. And there's also regulations around where you can drill a water disposal well. You don't want to inadvertently, lubricate a fault or something or change the stresses and create little small mini tremors.
I think Steve talked about that in Oklahoma.
Yeah, that it certainly is a thing. You don't want to create, you're not going to create giant earthquakes, but you can create small tremors with it. And likewise, you need to think about making sure that your well is properly and safely constructed, so that as you dispose of that water, it's not going into a zone that's productive in oil and gas. And of course, above all else, we want to protect any usable quality water that's very, very shallow, and it's behind many layers of steel and cement, and it's very well protected. But those are all important parts when people construct water disposal wells. Typically we use third-party disposal wells early in the life of a field, haul it off to a commercial disposal, as we call it. And then later in the life of a field, once you get more established, it's not uncommon to drill your own wells to dispose of your own water. It's a capital expense, but over time it pays for itself.
Yeah, very interesting, Ryan. Thanks for sharing a little bit more about that. I think people will find it interesting if you're watching this live. You're definitely curious about oil and gas, how it works, and understanding the operation side of it. So I want to thank you both for being with me today. Ryan, thank you. And Kelly, thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah.
Kelly, thank you so much. Ryan, I know you're going to go outside and enjoy the outdoors as soon as you get off.
I'm going to avoid the outside.
I don't know about right after I get off the call, but eventually I will be out there. That's guaranteed.
Enjoy the Pacific Northwest summer. It is, well, I won't say it's unlike anywhere else in the world, but it's close to it. So I want to thank everybody for watching and joining us today at the Oil and Gas Rundown Live. And definitely make sure to check us out at frackingoperating.com if you'd like to learn more about how we offer investors the opportunity to take part in active oil and gas operations and a direct drilling fund that provides you with substantial tax deductions, revenue, and the opportunity for growth in your portfolio. Please do head over to kingoperating.com, and we'd love to connect with you. Thank you, everybody, for joining today, and we'll see you next time.